Okay, this is Get Started with Event Monitoring. It's the first unit on the event monitoring module, part of the Trailhead Admin Advanced Trail. My name is Shafal Hadif. You're welcome to join me as I talk out and read through this unit. If I come across anything that seems confusing or I found tricky, I'll link to it in the description below. Otherwise, that's it. Okay. Name several event types supported by event monitoring. Define event log files. I sort of dislike, like tossing something into description here. Like, I have no idea what those are. I guess that's why we're going to define it. It might be nice to say, like, define the term. I don't know. Or put that in italics, so like I feel like, I don't know, whatever. State at least 3 use cases for event monitoring. Describe the API first approach to development. Okay, basically none of these made any sense to me. I think of an event like a sporting event, but that's not what we're talking about here. I feel like the learning objectives should be meaningful, but like, say, okay, this is what you know, and this is what we're going to learn new about. So like, rather than like the term, I would rather this said like, it spoke to the benefit statements, whatever those are, rather than the technical thing that I'm going to learn. Because does anybody really care about the technical stuff? You're only going to do it if there's a business reason to do it. Okay. Everyone knows that being a detective is one of the coolest jobs you can have. Well, hold on to your magnifying glass, because your job as a Salesforce administrator is just about to get a whole lot cooler. With event monitoring, you can be the investigator your organization always needed. Event monitoring is one of many tools that Salesforce provides to help keep your data secure. I didn't expect that. It lets you see the granular details of user activity in your organization. We refer to these user activities as events. You can view information about individual events and track trends in your events to swiftly identify abnormal behavior and safeguard your company's data. Okay, so here are some events you can track. So what are some events you can track? Event monitoring provides tracking for lots of types of events, including logins, logouts, URI, web clicks, and Salesforce Classic, which maybe people still do. Lightning, web clicks, performance errors, and Lightning experience, and the Salesforce mobile app, Visual Force page loads, API calls, Apex executions. Sorry guys, you gotta go. Report exports. All these are stored in event log files. Thank you, italics. An event log file is generated when an event occurs in your organization and is available to view and download after 24 hours. I don't know what an event log is, though. You didn't define that yet. The event types you can access and how long the files remain available depend on your edition. There must be some sort of tree, maybe, piece of wood. Developer edition organizations have free access to all log types within 1 day. With 1 day data retention, Pine, Cedar, and so on. Enterprise Unlimited Performance Edition organizations have free access to the insecure external assets, logins, and logout event log files with 1 day data retention. For an extra cost, you can access all log file types with 30-day data retention. So, how can you use event log files to become all-knowing Salesforce super sleuth? Cute, but yeah. Let's take login activity as an example. We talk about accessing, downloading, and visualizing event logs later on. For now, assume that we did these steps and produced this graph of login activity. Okay. You can see then usually a high number of logins. Organization occurred between May 4 and May 5, but how do you figure out exactly what happened during that time period? Luckily, event monitoring provides several ways for you to dig into this data. In this case, you might want to break down the number of logins by user. admin logged 103 times. Something is definitely fishy. You can continue to break this data down to see things like how many distinct IP addresses a user logged in from. This information helps you pinpoint whether an outside party compromised the user's account or whether a user is up to no good. You're probably beginning to see the power of event monitoring, but let's consider some other uses. Monitor data loss. Imagine that a sales representative leaves your company and joins a major competitor. Later, you find out the organization is losing a deal after deal to another company. You suspect that your former employee downloaded a report containing leads and shared it with the competition. If you'd been sent event monitoring, you could have caught this bad behavior before it cost your company sales. Increase adoption. Event monitoring isn't just for catching your users' bad behavior. It can also alert you to parts of your organization that aren't performing well. For example, you just rolled out a new Visualforce page in your organization that combines accounts and contacts and allows end users to add custom fields. Without any metrics, it's difficult to tell how users are interacting with this page, if at all. Event monitoring helps you figure out which parts of your organization need increased adoption efforts and even helps you identify areas that need redevelopment. Optimize performance. Sometimes it's hard to determine the cause of a slow page performance in your organization. Imagine that your company has an office in San Francisco and in London. The users in London tell you that their reports are running slowly or even timing out. You can use event monitoring to determine whether the cause is related to a network issue in London or with the way your app is configured. Okay. These cases are just a few ways you can use event monitoring to keep your organization secure and running smoothly. Check out all the event types to discover what else you can do. A quick note about the API. If you're an administrator, working with the API can be daunting. We won't go over all the nitty-gritty details in this module, but let's take a minute to review some basics. API stands for Application Programming Interface. You can think of this as a bridge between an application, in our case Salesforce, and the database. Two important terms to remember when working with APIs are objects. Objects. Almost every object in the user interface is also an object in the API, for example, a counter case. The API also has several objects that you can't use in the user interface. Fields. The fields you're used to seeing in the user interface are also fields in the API. For example, the account name field in the user interface becomes the name field in the API. Sometimes the user interface that didn't really make sense to me, but I'm moving along. Sometimes the user interface doesn't provide you with every possible access point to your data. That's why the API is so important. Salesforce encourages what's called an API-first approach to development. API-first means that before you develop an application's user experience, you want to pay attention to the underlying API. The API lets you use your data in ways that are possible in the user interface. Considering the API in the initial planning stages lets you develop a more robust application. I sort of get that, but I don't really get that. Event monitoring API is an API-only feature and isn't anywhere else in setup area. Instead, each organization's event logs files are stored in an API object called event log file. Salesforce provides an API tool called Workbench that lets you access your event log file objects. If all this information sounds a little confusing, don't worry, we'll go through it step by step during this module. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching.